Have you ever sat on a plane, feeling invisible, or worse, judged, shamed, and dismissed as if you didn't belong there? Now imagine this. You're in seat 22C, the middle of the row, just another face in the crowd. People laugh at you, whisper, and shame you for something they'll never understand. But only hours later, a single word, your call sign, forces the most powerful aircraft in the world, Air Force One, to change course and escort you with honor. This isn't just a story about humiliation. It's about a woman whose quiet past turned into a thunderous revelation at 30,000 feet. Stay with me until the end, because when her secret came out, it stunned every passenger on board. And before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because we share stories that prove ordinary people can carry extraordinary legacies. It was supposed to be just another commercial flight. Washington, D.C. to Dallas. The plane was filled with business travelers in sharp suits, college kids heading home, and families juggling children and snacks. Among them was a woman named Claire. She was in her early 40s, traveling alone, wearing a simple black hoodie and jeans. She didn't stand out. She never wanted to. But Claire's seat assignment set the stage, 22C, the dreaded middle seat. On her left, a man in a crisp tie frowned as if her presence intruded on his precious space. On her right, a young woman pulled her coat tightly, whispering into her phone. Claire felt the familiar sting of judgment. She had scars, some visible, some not. Her gait was slightly uneven from an old injury, and her hands bore calluses that seemed out of place on someone her age. She could feel eyes scanning her, the silent question, "What's her story?" The whispers began halfway through boarding. A pair of teenagers behind her snickered. A man across the aisle muttered something about security checks when he noticed the military tags around her neck. And when she ordered only water while others clinked glasses of wine, the woman beside her smirked and muttered, "Figures." Claire didn't react. She never did. Shame was an old companion. Whispers in airports, stares in grocery stores, the unspoken discomfort people carried around those who bore invisible weight. She shifted in her seat, eyes locked on the safety card in front of her, trying to fade into silence. But fate had other plans. An hour into the flight, turbulence rocked the cabin. Passengers gasped, clutching armrests. The captain's calm voice reassured them. "Ladies and gentlemen, just a rough patch of air. Nothing to worry about." But for Claire, turbulence wasn't frightening. It was familiar. Every shudder of the fuselage reminded her of rides she had taken long before this. Rides no civilian would ever know. Her knuckles whitened as she gripped the seat, not in fear, but in memory. Then, the unexpected happened. A flight attendant hurried down the aisle, pale-faced, whispering urgently into a handheld radio. Passengers leaned in, curious. The captain's voice returned, but this time, it was different. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have just received priority communication from the United States Air Force. We are being instructed to hold course until further notice." Confusion spread like wildfire. Why would the Air Force care about a passenger plane? People speculated in hushed tones, terrorist threats, restricted airspace, political movements. Nobody knew, but Claire knew the rhythm of those words. Military urgency had a cadence you never forget. Minutes later, the intercom buzzed again. This time, the captain's tone carried awe. "Passengers, this is something I've never experienced in 20 years of flying. Air Force One has just altered its route. We are receiving an escort." Gasps filled the cabin. Air Force One, the flying fortress of the President of the United States. Changing course? For them. Heads craned toward the windows, searching for a glimpse. And then they saw it. Twin fighter jets gliding into formation beside their plane, sleek and sharp, their presence both terrifying and breathtaking. The passengers erupted in speculation. Is there a threat? Are we in danger? Why us? Meanwhile, Claire's heart pounded. Because deep down, she understood. This wasn't random. The radio crackled in the cockpit, patched through to the cabin speakers by accident. A voice from the fighter escort spoke clearly. "Command, we have confirmed. Call sign Valkyrie is on board." "Repeat, Valkyrie confirmed." The plane went silent. Dozens of eyes turned toward each other, searching for answers. What was Valkyrie? And in seat 22C, Claire's head sank into her hands. The secret she had buried was now roaring back across the sky. Whispers spread like wildfire. Who's Valkyrie? What's happening? Is someone here important? Passengers twisted in their seats, their suspicion and fear growing. The businessman beside her leaned closer. Do you know anything about this? Claire shook her head quietly, but her silence betrayed her. The flight attendant, trembling, approached her seat. Ma'am, the captain would like a word. As Claire stood, whispers sharpened into accusations. It's her. She's the reason for all this. What did she do? Every step down the aisle felt heavier than the last. The shame burned hot against her skin. Inside the cockpit, the captain's eyes were wide. Ma'am, are you Valkyrie? She hesitated. For years, she had refused to acknowledge that name outside military walls. But the fighter jets outside weren't here for coincidence. Slowly, she nodded. The captain exhaled, almost in disbelief. Ma'am, Air Force One diverted course because of you. The president's security detail confirmed your presence. They said we were carrying a national asset. Claire closed her eyes. That call sign, Valkyrie, belonged to a past she had tried to leave behind. She had been a combat pilot, one of the best. Years ago, in a mission no one in the civilian world knew about, she had led an impossible rescue operation. Outnumbered, outgunned, she had flown her bird straight into chaos, shielding ground troops until reinforcements arrived. The mission saved dozens of American lives, but nearly killed her. She was discharged quietly after severe injuries. The world forgot. She never corrected them. But the military didn't forget. And apparently, neither did the skies. When Claire returned to her seat, the cabin buzzed louder than ever. She's Valkyrie, someone whispered. She's the reason Air Force One is here. Others scoffed, not believing a woman in jeans and a hoodie could be the legend they had read about in training manuals. But the truth became undeniable when the fighter jets outside dipped their wings, an aerial salute reserved only for the highest honor. And then, through the cabin intercom, the escort pilot's voice came again. Valkyrie, this is Eagle 2. It's an honor flying with you. The sky remembers. Gasps filled the cabin. The businessman beside her dropped his arrogance, staring at her with wide eyes. The teenagers who mocked her fell silent. Even the woman who had smirked at her earlier looked down in shame. And in seat 22C, Claire wept quietly, not from shame this time, but from the unbearable weight of respect. For the rest of the flight, no one mocked, no one whispered. Passengers instead approached her with trembling voices. Thank you. Is it true? You saved lives, didn't you? And Claire, humble as ever, simply nodded or smiled softly, never elaborating. When they landed, Air Force security vehicles lined the tarmac. The president didn't appear. This wasn't a publicity stunt. But the escort itself had said enough. Claire walked off the plane still just herself, hoodie, jeans, scars. But to every passenger on that flight, she was no longer the woman shamed in 22C. She was Valkyrie, the silent warrior the sky itself refused to forget. And that, my friends, is the story of Claire, the woman who carried shame in 22C until her call sign turned silence into reverence. She never sought recognition. She never wanted applause. But when Air Force One itself diverted to honor her, the world had no choice but to see her truth. It's a reminder that sometimes, the person we underestimate most has carried battles we'll never understand. That courage doesn't need medals or headlines. It just needs memory. If this story gave you goosebumps, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because we bring you more stories that remind us of hidden heroes walking quietly among us, waiting for the moment the world remembers their name.